I'm gonna adopt a British accent. What are you doing?
Which one? Because this one, I'm looking at some pictures. This one, I'm playing a game. And then I currently have some online bets that I have on my phone.
And you're listening to something over here too. What is that?
Yeah, I got a little music on this side.
Jeez, man.
I got to stay constantly distracted or the voices in my head will take over.
Do you even enjoy that anymore?
I think so.
If you feel like you're constantly stimulated, whether it's by your smartphone, social media, or anything else, the million distractions that we have these days, maybe it's time for a little reset.
And how would one go about that?
Let's find out.
Welcome to another episode of
Beef It Brothers,
Beef It Brothers podcast.
Explosions, cats.
Now, one way to do it is what he's doing, which is a dopamine detox. I don't even know what that is. What is that?
We're about to find out. But first,
a word from our
I'm
sponsors.
Julian. I'm taking over.
A word from our sponsors, HelloFresh. Use promo code BeefItBrothers to not get absolutely anything because we're not sponsored by them yet. But maybe.
We don't even like them that much.
Whatever. I'll like them if they give us money.
Yeah, of course. I like anything.
I like AG1 because they pay me. So we're back.
Wish.
I'm
They pay a lot.
Victor. I'm Victor. Alleged brother Julian. We're here at BeFit Miami Lakes. Come work out with us. No sort of garbage disposals anywhere near us.
Zero.
Miami Lakes, if you know it, we're right next door. Come
One
on
of my
by.
clients asked me yesterday if there was a dump nearby where she could throw things away. I was like, nope.
No.
Zero.
Wink, wink. None. Wink.
It's 15 yards away.
Sorry, Joey.
All right.
So let's get into it. What is a dopamine detox and what benefits could that have for
Okay,
a
so
potential detoxer?
before we go into dopamine detox, let's talk about what dopamine is, which I'm sure these fine folks have at least heard a little bit of it. Thank you, Andrew Huberman, my boy.
You wish.
Nah, I do wish, actually. Okay, so dopamine. First of all, it has the word dope in it, so it's already pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's widely misunderstood, and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I know
Oh, man.
all the pathways of it, but
hoping you would.
let's keep it simple because that's what we like to do. It's basically the neurotransmitter that's released in anticipation to some sort of reward, right? It's not the reward itself, although rewarding yourself in several ways does release dopamine, but it's most important to think about it as I'm about to do this thing that I really enjoy. I'm about to eat that donut, or I'm about to, go see my favorite band, like that anticipation.
Which is better sometimes than the actual
A
thing.
lot of times it's better, and we're gonna get into like addiction and stuff like that, but I would argue that once you become addicted to something, then the anticipation of said thing is better than when you
sure.
actually get it. And that's when addiction becomes bad, because it's like, oh,
You're always
I thought this
chasing
was
it.
gonna be great, but really the result isn't as good as I thought. So that's one of the reasons why you would wanna do a dopamine detox, and that's what we're gonna get into. So that makes sense, right? Dopamine
So
part?
far.
Okay. So this name sucks. Dopamine detox is actually like a,
Really quick, what's the difference between dopamine and serotonin?
serotonin is the neurotransmitter that you kind of want more, because it's more like I'm content with this. It's that feeling you get when you're
With your family?
with your family and you're like, there's a nice sunset and you look at them, you're like, man, life is good. That's serotonin. Dopamine is more of like you think of crackhead gambler, here we go, you're smoking your cigs
Yeah.
and you're about to, see the
Sounds
slot
fun.
machine, and that's the thing. It's very fun. And this is a world filled with what we call cheap dopamine, which we're gonna get into. So the reason I hate the name, and the name kind of sucks, but it's clickbaity and we're still gonna put it in the title, is because you're not detoxifying yourself of dopamine. You can't get rid of dopamine. It's a natural thing. It's gonna be released no matter what.
Yeah, but nobody wants to hear cheap dopamine detox.
Or they want to see change your body's physiological reward
Yeah, that's
systems.
boring.
That's a very boring name.
Boo.
So, but I just want to let the folks know that you're not detoxing anything. What you're really doing essentially is taking back control of your body's reward systems. And what I mean by that, and we're gonna get deep into this, is nobody likes to doom scroll on Instagram or on TikTok for 2 hours. Like after you're done with
never
that,
feel
you never
good.
feel like that was time well spent. But you didn't choose to do that. It's almost like a lot of these companies have hijacked our ability to do what we want to do, to put our attention in the things that we want.
It's like the feeling after watching pornography, I've been told.
Yeah, never done that. But
I've never done it personally, but
yeah,
you go to these
it's exactly
websites.
that.
Yeah.
And it's funny how you bring that up, because porn is one of the highest inducing, like that anticipation. It's one of the highest levels
I'm
of
sure
dopamine release.
it's one of the highest highs and the lowest lows. I bet.
I'm sure it is.
Has to be.
I'm sure it is. But then 2 hours later, you're like, ah. Ugh. Before we move on to the detox, one analogy that I was reading in preparation for this that's good to think about is thinking of dopamine, your dopamine systems as like a carrot on the stake, right? It's perpetually on the stake. You never actually really catch it once you've like kind of shot your reward systems the way that most people in this day and age have, you know, where things don't really even make you that happy anymore. You're just doing it because you kind of need that like quick fix.
Yeah, like we've seen people scrolling and they're literally like this, like
yeah, you're just boom, 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 boom. Nothing makes you
like you're not even paying attention to the things you're scrolling. Who was it? I don't
which is
name.
crazy.
Scrolling like, and we're like, you're not enjoying
exactly
that.
who that
Yeah,
was.
you're not even enjoying that. You're just literally scrolling to scroll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what we mean by dopamine detox, and the reason I'm doing it, is basically shifting the way that the pathways that are reward systems for your body or your brain, right? In other words, instead of, okay, I have a few minutes off, let me get immediately on TikTok and just like scroll through, it's like, no, let me read this book that's been sitting on my shelf that I know is gonna be enjoyable, and I know it's something that I've been wanting to learn, but that's not as big of a reward as the TikTok, right?
Definitely less appealing.
Exactly. It's slowly it's reducing your exposure to these things. It's like basically taking away the drug in order for you to spend time doing things that you actually want to do that are, by the way, not as like, oh, like crackhead rewarding.
But it's still like something that's good and enjoyable. Like I enjoy reading a book, but like you said, it's not like
it doesn't
come to you, and it doesn't come naturally. Like, oh, I'm gonna take my book to the toilet. No, I'm taking my freaking Reddit or Instagram or TikTok to the toilet.
Exactly. So all you're doing with this quote unquote detox, and I'll stop using the quote, let's just call it a detox for what it is deliberately removing those highly pleasurable, cheap dopamine sources and replacing them, because you always have to replace. Whenever you're trying to get rid of a bad habit, you have to replace it with something else. You can't just go cold turkey. I'll explain why. Replacing it with other activities that you actually want to do and are a little bit more fulfilling, although they're not as, pleasurable in the moment.
You're not going to replace it with like hard labor or work or something, because that's just going to lead you more, I think, into the path of seeking that cheap dopamine.
That's a good point, and we will definitely talk about why you shouldn't, like, this isn't like, you're not supposed to inflict as much pain as possible, like this ascetic, like monk style. I'm just going to get off of everything, no phone at all. I'm gonna go back to a flip phone.
Yeah, you're not turning into David Goggins.
It's just not gonna work. Okay, so there's this quote. I want you to interpret it for me. By Naval, another one of my modern heroes. The modern devil is cheap dopamine. What does that mean to you?
So I think what that means is that in this society, which is true, in this society, our biggest downfall is the lack of attention, the lack of social skills, and the lack of seeking those more fulfilling rewards, because we're constantly being spoon-fed these little cheap rewards, or these like easy to consume rewards that you get from these cheap dopamine activities.
Okay. And
that's preventing growth, obviously, which is preventing you from building relationships, financial stability, whatever fulfillment may be to you.
Yeah. I also like that you used the modern devil, because like religion isn't as popular as it once was. So it throws that in there too, where it's like, it's no longer the things of the past that were like the sins of the past. Now
it's very Black Mirror-y.
Yeah, now it's these little mini, I won't call them sins, but these little mini activities that become bad habits that impede you from doing, like you said, the things that you ultimately want to do but are hard.
Yeah, if you're up on your phone till 2 a.m. Doom scrolling TikTok, that's taking away your sleep. The next day your energy is going to suffer. You're going to suffer at work. You're probably going to be in a grumpy mood. So all those little things add up to a more unfulfilled, less happy.
100%.
So,
you know what's particularly insidious about this is that it happens gradually, right? I guess like every addiction.
Yeah,
it happens to the best of us. I know it happens to both of us, where you started with like, oh yeah, this app is cool, or yeah, this video game is cool. I'll do it at whatever at this time.
It's the last video game you played.
The last video game I played?
Donkey Kong Country 2.
The last video game I played, it's probably NBA 2K, like 12 years ago.
NBA 2K12.
Anyway, you know what I mean, right? Where it's like, it starts with a little bit, oh, you downloaded the app, no big deal. Yeah. And then before you know it, you're scrolling for 2 hours a day.
And I think that's something that it's all very person dependent, because I downloaded TikTok about like super late, like 3 months ago. Never got into it. Still to this day, I was like, I'll open up and be like, no. And I just deleted it. It's not really, didn't do it for me. But I will doom scroll Instagram all day. So like,
what's that what's it called? Brain rot?
Brain rot.
Explain what that means.
Oh, gladly. Brain rot is essentially things that have no value. It's not even like if I demonstrated, if I showed it to somebody, they probably wouldn't even find it funny. It's just something that it's exactly what it sounds like. Brain rot. It's toxic,
Like
sludge.
like Jerry Springer back in the day?
Like
Is
Jerry
could that
Springer,
be?
exactly. Like
Okay.
trash. But these
Okay,
are,
so that's not what I thought it was.
what do you think it was?
I thought it was.
It's usually
I
nonsensical.
thought
by
it
the
was
way.
like. I thought it was like. Let's say like someone who's scrolling through TikTok for so long that like nothing, where you're just like nothing
no.
even makes. That's a different
brain rot
state
is
of mind.
brain rot is a type of media, I would say,
Okay,
especially
okay.
something that doesn't really make sense. Like the things Randy likes, that's brain rot.
I got it. I got it. Okay. So
Like
it's
Skibbity-
made.
you know
it
what
was
Skibbity toilet
created-
is?
No, I don't want to know.
Skibbity toilet is the ultimate like form of brain rot. Like that's the type of thing. It doesn't make sense. You show it to somebody older, they wouldn't get it. It's
I
just-
see.
But the like middle schoolers and shit will
It's
find
cool.
it hilarious.
Yeah, because they're como mía does.
Well said.
So let's define the problem, right? Because a lot of
Pretty
people are
quick.
thinking,
I like that I'm your brain rot specialist. That's funny.
Oh yeah, of course. You're also more in tune with like the younger culture, so.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Okay, so let's state the problem because, like, a lot of people might not even realize that it's a problem. But in this modern society, every company is preying on you or trying to get your attention and trying to get you hooked on whatever they're selling, whether that's junk food or candy or it's the latest social media app. So, like we just said, it's very easy if you're not careful to fall into like, okay, now I have this candy addiction or whatever, or I'm on X or on Twitter for whatever time, however many hours a day. You didn't choose to do that, but there's so many companies like fighting for your attention, and a lot of times they're gonna win. So sometimes it's time for you to take back control of that attention, and that's exactly what we're gonna talk about, exactly how to do that.
It's gotten to a point that I don't know about you, but I've done this. I'm guilty of this. That I'm on Instagram scrolling. I'll close it and I immediately open it back up again. I'm like, wait, I literally just closed the app. What am I doing back here again? And
Yep.
that's the definition of that addiction. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, we can get into like how this manifests in you versus me versus somebody else because I think it's super interesting. But let's continue with the problem. One of the other things that a lot of people I don't think about is like the same way there's junk food that's objectively bad for your health. There's also the information diet, the diet that you consume that's not an actual diet, but like the media, the things that you're exposed to, the stories, that's also affecting your brain and your health in other ways. So it's everything that we're taking in. So this whole thing is about focusing more on the good things and then removing some of the bad ones. Now, why is this even bad to begin with? Like you can see people saying like, well, yeah, I like being on Instagram, dude. I like scrolling. Like, what's the problem with it? Like, what would you say?
I'd say that it isn't a problem as long as it's in moderation. It's like all of these things. Like you can have a snack. We always, us, we preach that you can have a little snack here and there, especially me. I like a little treat. But the problem becomes when that's your go-to. That's your fallback. Like any chance I have 5 minutes, I'm going to go on Instagram, I'm going to scroll. And you're not really getting any satisfaction from that. Like you said
but
earlier.
like to push back, what if I told you like, you can do a little crack as
But
long
you
as you keep
can't.
it in moderate?
You can't though.
Okay, what teenager can, in moderation, use their smartphone?
I'm not saying they can or can't. What I'm telling you is that that's when it becomes a problem. Like,
Well, but my theory would be don't introduce it, like try to be cautious as if it's something that's highly addictive because it is.
okay. And then my pushback to that would be, then with that rationale, you really wouldn't try anything because you're like kind of dooming yourself from the beginning. So these things are made to be enjoyed, and that's fine. I don't think there's any problem with having these little pleasures. But I think the real problem becomes, like you said, when you can't help it, and that addiction, that's when it becomes an issue. But then to argue your side, that comes unexpectedly. Like you said, it's a trickle effect. You don't all of a sudden open up Instagram when you're addicted. It becomes little by little. You're 5 minutes turns to 10 minutes, turns to an hour, turns to 2. Like that's
And
when
it
things
happens
become a
to
problem.
even, you would think like, oh, this only happens to like low IQ people. No, it happens to everybody.
Oh, it happens to everybody. Like,
you
you
know,
see
like
people
you would
on-
think that
yeah.
you're self-aware enough or smart enough to be like, no, I can control myself. I can say, you cannot. Like I've
can't.
heard of
Yeah.
the deepest thinkers of our time saying, I had to delete Twitter from my phone because it was distracting me from my real work, reading books, writing, whatever it is that I do for my vocation. And that's the smartest people. So then you can imagine what happens to the people that are not self-aware, that are just willy-nilly, gives the kid the phone with TikTok on it, and before you know it, It's like that famous thing of the kid with like the two phones doing that. Have you seen that? It's disturbing.
Yeah, it is.
But I guess I'm thinking about it more like as a parent. It's like, would I introduce something that I know is potentially addictive? And we can talk about it now if you want. Some people have more propensity for addictive personalities like me. I would say that I'm the guy. That's why I have to be cautious with things like that.
I would say you're a funny guy because not like personality, you're a fool. Because you do have that tendency to become addicted to things, but at the same time, you're so self-aware and hyper-aware that you know that it's a problem. So you're able to put the brakes on it. Somebody that doesn't have that, no, you are. No, you are. Look at you, you're doing your own detox. Nobody told you to do it. You're doing it because you want to.
But the need to do a detox tells you that you've gone too far.
Yeah, but 95% of our society wouldn't do it because they love these pleasures and they don't want to take that away from themselves. Or worse, they don't think it's a problem. So you have that self-awareness and, oh, this is not good for me. This is something that I need to stop to be more productive, to be more fulfilled. And like you said, unfortunately, people of lower socioeconomic status or lower IQs tend to fall into these traps, or like, oh, silly video of a guy getting kicked in the balls, and they'll watch that.
That can be harmful.
That can be harmful. I'm just laughing, enjoying myself. Yeah, you spent 6 hours of your day.
Yeah, which we can argue, like, that's one thing we could objectively say. No one chooses to spend 6-7 hours of like screen time per day.
And if you do, I promise you, and I'm not trying to say this to be funny, you're probably depressed, or you're in some sort of depressive state.
What about like video games? Because that's out of my realm completely. Would you say that, oh, that was enjoyable? Because I could see people being like, hell yeah, I'll play this Call of Duty for 5 hours if I wanted. Like,
that's a slippery slope, especially nowadays. You come to the realization that a lot of people do it just because it's their only hobby. So a lot of
and there's a social aspect to it, right? In some of these games, like you're interacting.
You play with friends, or you play with a bunch of assholes, usually a bunch of racist people.
Okay.
But you think of it like, oh, I'm gonna get home and enjoy and relax, and then you're super stressed and you're frustrated because you might suck. So did you even enjoy it? Half the time you don't. So that's a slippery slope because sometimes you're doing it, like I said, it's the only thing you know. Sometimes you played and you're like, you wonder, am I even enjoying this? Because you're just doing it. You're just going through the motions.
Okay, like everything else then.
Like everything else. But sometimes you'll be like, damn, okay, that was a lot of fun. Like that really like blew me away, or that was a nice experience I had with this friend or with this group.
Which again, it's like you said, in moderation, these things are okay. You just gotta be careful.
And like I said, you anticipated, the anticipation of, oh, I get to go home and play this new game with my friends is fun. But if you have like 24 hours, like I just sat there and played, it kind of becomes monotonous, and it becomes like, okay, I'm just doing this to like pass the time or like go through the motions.
I feel like
there's literally games that are called like time sucks is what they call it, because you're just like grinding. It's just grinding.
Gotcha.
And they call it grinding. Usually like MMORPGs, which is massive multiplayer online games. You're grinding. You're literally just, the game is made to, hey, to get to that area, you have to kill 1,000 of these little shitty guys just to get over there and participate. You're just there going through the motions so you can get to the other part, which I've always found nonsensical. That's not for me.
Here's the nuance in this whole argument is that if you have something worthwhile going on in your life and you want to get home after a long productive day and do that for an hour or two, all power to you. But where it becomes dangerous is these basement dwellers that don't have a job, are going pretty much nowhere in life, and they're just playing for 8, 9, 12 hours a day. I think it's very different if you're a productive person that's like, that's on a sort of trajectory, and you want to get home and do whatever you want, watch Netflix, get on TikTok, that's fine. So we need to make that separation of 100%. If you have something going on, that's fine. But it is a fact that there's tens of millions, especially young men, when it comes to video games.
Look at the phenomenon in Asia that you talked about a while ago, that the kids are going to camp to get away from that.
They have like little urinals because they can't step away to go to the bathroom.
It's ridiculous.
But that's how addictive these things can be.
It's addicting, and unfortunately now there's a competition aspect because they're trying to be the best, they're trying to be streamers, they're trying to do all this.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there's a career to be made from it.
And that takes time. It's not like something you could just like, oh, I'm really good at like Call of Duty because I play once a day. I promise you're not. My age, I log on for an hour, and I get my ass handed to me because these kids are on there.
But you know how it is to be like 17, or you're like overly optimistic and you think 100%. You're gonna be the millionaire streamer.
100%. And at that age, I would argue it might be different because you could stay up to 3 a.m. having fun with your friends, but at some point, I think it loses the enjoyability and it loses like the nuance and the newness of it.
And that's a great segue to what I wanted to talk about, which is like, how do addictions start in the first place? And the reason is when something is novel, like humans love novelty, something that's new, like shiny object, right? and it feels really good in the beginning. But then the more you do that thing, the more desensitized you become to it, and then you need more.
You know, it's a
now,
big
now
one.
you need more and more and more and more.
One
and
that
more.
we probably haven't touched on is like Amazon shopping.
Oh yeah,
happens
it's on
all
my
the time.
list.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. But I wanted to get to the basis of addiction, right? What is the basis of addiction? It's
slow drip.
The slow, yeah. It's like this reward was great,
Yeah.
but it's almost like that old saying. It's like it's never like your first time, right?
Somebody said the other day, and that's perfect. No donut will ever be like your first donut, and you're always
Exactly.
chasing that.
Exactly.
Donut.
I mean, that's how it is. So I hear with drugs, but a very easy one for everyone to. For somebody like me is like alcohol, right? Whereas like back in the day, you can have a few sips of a drink and you be a nice buzz for 2-3 hours. I'm good. Now it's like 4 beers in, and you're like, all right, give me another one.
We saw the last episode.
Yeah. So that's the basis for addiction. It can happen with any of these things, and that's the whole point here. Like maybe you're listening, you're like, I don't have that TikTok problem, but I like to gamble on it, you know? Or I don't have this, but like my online shopping is out of control. So like you said, TikTok, not a thing for either of us, but X for me is the one. Like for me, it's Twitter. That's the one. For some reason, I'm more of a like intellectually stimulated than like the little videos and the silly stuff. Like it just doesn't do it for me. And then I would say YouTube, I wouldn't even count it because YouTube you have to be a lot more deliberate about like what you pick. But some people are pretty addicted to YouTube.
I've found myself, and I don't like it, when I'm home, I'll be like, I'm watching a YouTube video and then I'm like, okay, I have to do the dishes. Flip, podcast, headphone, and like, there's no time in between for me to
I'll do you
not
one
be
better. I
stimulated.
use it in the shower.
Oh, no.
Which my wife makes fun of me.
Yeah,
and
I
Dad does
podcast
the same
in the shower.
thing.
I podcast in the shower all the time.
Podcast and bathe.
Yeah, we're actually going to record our next podcast in the shower together.
Let's do it. But that goes to show, like, that's when you realize, okay, maybe I have a little bit of a problem. If you can't take a 5-minute shower without the stimulation, and that's what it comes down to. It's like you need to be constantly stimulated, hence why I want to do this detox. You know, I want to take back control of some of that, you know?
And I know sometimes, I don't know if it happens to you, but my addiction has gone so deep that I'll be listening to my podcast. Intervention. I'm listening to my podcast in the car, but I'm thinking, and I'm so far gone that I'm like, wait, I haven't heard the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Got to rewind like 10 minutes, and then me pasa otra vez. It'll happen again. I'm there. Yep. Oh my God, I missed the whole part again.
It also tells you 2 things. 1, either what you're thinking about is really important, or 2, the conversation isn't stimulating enough. Because when it's a good podcast, you're listening intensely.
But sometimes, like you said, your mind's not there. And
you also listen to like silly podcasts sometimes.
I'll listen to both. Yeah.
Because I can see if they're just joking around and talking about whatever, then it's easier for you to like get distracted. But if it's more,
I would say the opposite. If it's more intellectual, I'll be like, okay, this guy kind of lost me.
I'm listening to one right now that I'm dying to get right back in the car and keep listening. Every now and then, the right one hits, you know? And that's the danger of this, is that it is really stimulating. And I will say one good thing about podcasting and this stimulation is that I'll do any household chores, no problem. Like I have no problem with it as long as I have my headphones on and I'm listening to this stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, you see, babe, you can that's not a problem.
You think she's watching this?
I hope so.
She heard all your AOC comments on the last one. I love it.
Okay, so oh boy. So what is the goal of something like a dopamine detox? So
I would say control.
That's exactly right. So it'd be like regaining control, enhancing your focus, finding enjoyment in like simpler things. Like you don't need that constant like crazy stimulation, which is why I hate things like TikTok, because I feel like it's, and the TikTokification, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Of everything else, because it assumes that we're these,
brain dead.
Yeah, brain dead.
I need my information.
Toddlers.
Like this.
No, literally, like that's what it assumes, because it's like, well, these morons won't read.
They won't read a
these
paragraph.
Let me do a little dance to show them how to crack your back. No, you gotta crack your back like this. Crack, 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 crack. Make it. It's like, dude, don't insult my intelligence. I think that's why we don't like TikTok.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
So anyway, regaining that control. Here's what I would say. If you find yourself doing things where you regret having spent time doing that, then you probably can use something where like rewiring of your habits, I would say. 100%. And that happens to me all the time. For example, and I'll be completely honest about it. My biggest,
What?
Yeah. If I'm home and I have a little bit of, I don't have that much free time, but when I am home and I have free time, and obviously my kids, like my small kids are around, but I also want to like check Twitter and see what's going on in the world. So sometimes instead of playing with my kids, I'm on Twitter. That's by far for me the most regrettable time. Like the time passes and I say, damn, man, like these kids are only little for so long and you're spending your time on your freaking phone. So I have to resort to doing, what would seem like crazy things. Like you said, like, oh, do it in moderation. But some people can't eat sugar in moderation. Some people can't have alcohol in moderation. And I'm the type of person that I can't be on my phone in moderation. So what do? I have to put my phone away.
Put it to charge.
Put it in another room.
Yeah.
We're having like a little basket now at home where we can put our phones because, again, you realize that it's a problem. You regret it. Let me not do that again.
Remember that Netflix documentary that kind of went viral during COVID, that they locked the phone in the lockbox?
Yeah.
And the kid destroyed it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I can see a lot of teenagers getting that wild up. I mean, you've seen those videos where they take the iPad from the toddlers.
Yeah.
And the toddlers lose their shit.
It's funny, somebody just yesterday asked me, she goes randomly, she's like, what would you do if somebody took your phone away for a whole day? And I was like, probably go out and enjoy myself, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I'll go and play sports or something, and I'll do something enjoyable. Like, I wouldn't cry about it.
But that's what's interesting about you specifically, is that you're the type of person that, like, yeah, you'll be like really, really into something, but if it happens to be taken away from you, you're in another environment, you don't have the dependency on said thing. You'll find something else in that environment, but a lot of people aren't like that.
A good example is I'm addicted to coffee here, the cafecito. I'll drink like 6-7 cups a day. If I go on vacation, I don't drink one drop of coffee.
So you're not addicted.
I'm not addicted. I have anxiety. I have to be drinking or eating something.
It's in the environment.
Yep.
It happened to me when I went traveling for a while. I had my phone on airplane mode for months, literally months, and I would purposely not get a SIM card because I didn't want to fall into that trap.
Yep.
But I'm the type of person that I don't keep junk food in my house because I know I'll eat it. I have to put my phone away because I know I'll have it. Like, so you have to first and foremost know yourself. Do you have an addictive personality? Is this thing that you're spending your attention on a problem? The other thing I would say is, if you're debating whether or not you want to do something like this, is are you on track to like meet your goals or reach some sort of goal?
Do you even have a goal?
Do you even have a goal, right? So I have certain goals and certain ambitions that I know this is the type of person I have to be in order to get that. The type of person that I want to be doesn't spend 3 hours a day on TikTok or on X or on whatever, reads books, does hard things, works out, like spends time with family. That's the type of person I want to be. So therefore, I have to make certain sacrifices of these little pleasures
take steps
in order to do that. Now, if you don't want to do that, all power to you. Like, move on, watch the next YouTube video, watch some brain rot. But I think most people do have ambitious goals and have things that they'd like to accomplish. I mean, we see it, we work in a gym, we see that all the time. And you just have to know, like, okay, what kind of habits does that person that I want to become have?
It's funny you say that, and the people that are like habitually single, it's usually like single guys, and they're like scrolling through Instagram, or they're playing video games, or jacking off all day, or smoking weed, or what have you, and they're there all day. Like, man, I wonder why I'm single and I don't have a job. The job market is so crazy.
Yeah.
Huh. Maybe if you took care of yourself and you actually did these things, like, who's gonna want to be, like, you got to think of yourself realistically. If you put yourself out there on a billboard, I play video games and smoke weed and masturbate all day and I do these things, you want me? Like, no, man, not really. Like,
100%.
take these steps to better yourself, and none of these addictions are improving you. Like, I'm sorry, it's just not. And I'm saying that, mind you, I'm not preaching from my high horse.
Yeah.
I'm the snack eating, maybe do other things kind of guy. But I acknowledge that, and I realize that these things are not good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you nailed it there. I wish we could. This would be something that a lot of young men, for some reason, because statistically, women are a lot more like conscientious and driven, and they're more disciplined than men. Although it happens with women too.
But they're also more emotionally mature. And I think that's a big part of it, is emotional maturity, knowing that, hey, if I want to be this type of person, I got to do at least like take my job more seriously, take my studies more seriously. All that, women tend to be, I don't know, more...
Men need more direction, and I think they need more mentorship. So what I was going to say is, like, this is a great message for them. But I think it's so simple and it's very logical, which is, what do I have to do to be here, right? A perfect analogy is exercise, right? People come to us all the time. Hey, I want this goal. Okay, here's the recipe, here's the blueprint. Now, doing it is another story, but here's the blueprint. Same thing when it comes to like your life goals or whatever it is that we want to achieve. Is, do you know anybody that's living a life that, like, you're like, wow, that person's really killing it, that is eating junk food all day or not sleeping, staying out to 3 a.m, doing all... No, there are certain steps
the only way you get that is
all these people have.
If you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth, and then you can't look up to those people because they haven't done anything to deserve that.
Exactly.
You just live a life of luxury. Like, it just happened to be. And I promise you, those people are not happy half the time.
Dr. Phil over
Dr.
here.
Phil over here. It's funny, actually, we're talking about this. I just heard a professor of marketing talking about, he was saying that he teaches at a really high level in college. And he says he asks his students, where do you see yourself in 10 years financially? And they're all like,
In the top 1%.
yeah, I heard that.
Yep.
The top 1% is like, okay, then you got to do shit that the top 1%. And guess what? That's dedicating 95 to 100% of your life on
work.
Not
Yep.
Not
That's
relationships.
investment banker on Wall Street working 100 hours a week.
Not
You wanna do that?
relationships. You don't
And then-
usually single.
What I love is
usually,
those same kids are the ones that are like, I want work-life balance.
Yeah.
No, I want to play my pickleball
Yeah.
like 3 hours of the day,
Oh.
and I want to do this. Well, that's what's popular, you know. So,
Uh-huh.
and I want to have my social life, and I want to be.
Oh,
like,
I
it's
can't
not
work
like-
more than 6 hours a day.
I'm
What?
sorry, but and by definition, you're not going to be in the 1% if you're not taking crazy risks and doing the sacrifices that 1% is doing.
If you want a casual life or like a relaxed life, you're not going to be anywhere near the 1%. So just either trim your goals down or adjust your life accordingly to what your goals are. Like,
You know what I think is the hardest thing about all this is that, most people watching this, they're not the slobs, they're not the basement dwellers. They are, hardworking people, some of them with kids. They live stressful lives, and we all want that little bit of pleasure amidst our stressful lives. That's why I get home in the middle of the day and I have 45 minutes and 20 of them are on the couch on X, because that's what I want to do. That's later. No, I'm kidding.
yeah. What do you
know
call
what?
it?
It's hard to deny yourself of those pleasures. You want to have your glass of wine at the end of the day.
Yeah, where I'm guilty is I try to take back my day at night.
Ooh, that's
like-
a common one.
Yeah, so like
I know
I'll get
someone
home at
does
like
that.
8 p.m. or some days, 7 p.m., 7:30. By the time you're done eating, feeding your dogs, your kids, all that stuff, it's 9. Realistically, you want to go to bed around what, 10? Because we wake up at 6 a.m. every day.
Yup.
I go to bed at midnight because I'm fighting back. This is my time. I'm gonna take these 2 hours to play games or watch TV or whatever I want to do.
And to be fair, it's the only time in your day where you choose, I'm going to
What
do
I'm gonna
this
do.
thing,
Yeah.
damn it.
Man, I haven't
The
done
rest-
anything all day. I
Yeah,
wanna
the
do.
rest
I'm
of my
gonna
day,
do- yeah.
which really is adulthood in a nutshell, you
Yeah.
know? But it's like I haven't done what I wanted to do. All I've done all day is responsibilities.
It sounds bratty, but
Responsibilities. No, dude, I think it's very, a very human thing.
yeah.
So some examples of activities to avoid during a dopamine detox. And by the way, you can do it in many different ways. After all this, I'm going to share what I'm going to do, but it's going to be different for everybody else. Like we just said, everybody has different
Step
bad
by step.
habits.
Yeah.
But, there's certain stimuli you can avoid, whether it's social media, video games, whatever that. It's going to be hard to delete Amazon from your phone. So that's why online shopping is
That's
hard
a hard
thing.
one, yeah.
Binge watching TV, things like that. So whatever I would say your triggers are,
Triggers.
you can avoid them. When it comes to food, processed and sugary foods, those are the biggest culprits. No one gets addicted to broccoli. No one has a problem.
I can't stop eating all this broccoli.
Or even things like meat. There's only so much red meat that you can eat. It's always the processed, highly palatable food. So excessive snacking.
I think that one might
alcohol.
be that's a really hard one too, because usually it's something that's not out of our control, I don't want to say, but let's say I live with somebody, I have a few clients that live with their significant other, and while they're making a lifestyle change, their partner's not.
Yeah.
So
that's
I
the
brought
problem.
pizza tonight, and you're like, fuck, man, you brought pizza? I'm trying to eat healthy. That's a hard one.
Yeah, well, I think that this would have to be something where you have a conversation with whoever you live with, and it's like, hey, I'm really trying to
If you're gonna do that, eat in the car.
Well, I don't know what the solution that you would come to, but it's you can't. You can't be swimming upstream when it comes to this. You know, if you have a problem with something and then everybody around you is doing it, come on, you're not gonna be. This is why drug addicts have to oftentimes move from
neighborhoods,
wherever completely move, because everything is associated with the drug and the drug use, and it's the same with this kind of stuff.
I smoked crack on that bench.
And the thing is, you want to avoid activities that hijack your brain's reward system, because again, we're trying to build new pathways. And by the way, the messed up part is it takes a while. This isn't something where I quit for 24 hours, I'm good to go.
I'm good.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So we're trying to retrain our brain here. So one of the things I wrote down that I think it's great to remember is everything that truly makes us happy requires a more natural dopamine release, right? Why are you smirking?
Your ear, you're going in on your ear.
Oh, and what I mean is, if you look at how humans lived for hundreds of thousands of years, there was no TikTok, there was no fast food, there was no this crazy, insane, cheap dopamine at quick bits. It was more things took longer, And I think that's a more natural, physiological, like dopamine pathway than I'm sitting, you can picture the basement dweller eating chips while playing video games. Like all that is very unnatural. So it's picking activities that bring you back to those simpler, and again, it's not going to be as pleasurable. It's not going to be as enjoyable, but it's definitely more fulfilling.
Sometimes those more primal things can be a lot of fun though. Like if you go out and throw rocks at the side of a building, that's pretty fun.
It's not as fun as being on your phone.
It might be if you're with friends. If you're with your boys throwing rocks at a lake, I think that might be as fun as...
Further makes the problem even worse is that people aren't really hanging out with their friends on a day-to-day.
That's true.
You're by yourself and you have your lunch break and your phone's right there.
Yep.
There's different approaches. Like you can quit things cold turkey, or you can do more of like an incremental, like I'm going to just quit fast food or sugary foods, which I think we can both agree that is what we would do. I happen to be doing a more extreme one just because I want to challenge myself. Everybody does like challenge. Like we're doing a fitness challenge here at Be Fit in January, and it's one of those things where like there's absolutely no need to get rid of it all and do something so extreme.
Yeah.
However, what I'm gonna do is to challenge myself. Which, by the way, I'm not betting on myself. I'm not even thinking that I can do it.
Please don't stop drinking coffee.
This
again.
is accountability. I'm telling all of you guys that I'm gonna try to do it.
Just please keep drinking coffee.
Don't worry, I'm not gonna quit coffee.
He stopped coffee for 2 days and he was insufferable.
Yeah, coffee is non-negotiable here.
I think a little tip that I think a good tip for people here, if you have a social media addiction, is setting screen limits. That's something I have on my Instagram. It tells me, you've been on Instagram for an hour today. And whether that does something to you or not, for me at least it goes, shit, okay, close and I'll leave it alone, like at least for a while. Because while it might not stop you completely, at least it deters you from continuing that doom scroll. Like, oh shit, I've used it already for an hour today. Like that's kind of eye-opening, at least for me. That's enough for me to like put it down.
Yeah, it's the awareness kicking in.
Yeah.
Another strategy would be like time blocking, setting specific times that I can do this thing. And honestly, I don't see any problem with that because you're taking control, right? I'm going to play video games from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. That way you don't even feel guilty about it because you chose that. Now, these things become problematic when, like I said, your kid's right there on the floor wanting to interact with you and you're comiendo mierda,
placing a parlay
WhatsApp
on
or
Nikola
placing a parlay.
Jokic's
Exactly.
points, rebounds.
That's when it becomes problematic because you'd rather be doing that, but you're doing
and it's
this.
definitely more fulfilling.
Okay?
I feel that same guilt, and I know it's not close, but I feel that same guilt even with my dogs. Like one of my dogs brings me a toy and they want to play, and you're there on your phone. I'm like, man, their life is so short. Like, and this is the best part of their day.
Yeah.
The least you could do is give them a little time.
Exactly. But therein lies the problem here is that all the things that we really want to do require effort. And you know what requires zero effort? Scrolling. That's the whole problem here. It doesn't require any effort. And unfortunately, you have to put a little bit more effort to live a life that's a little bit more fulfilling, and that's where it all comes down to. We already talked about, I want to go into more like substituting like the high stimulation activities with like lower stimulation ones. Huge disclaimer, it's not going to be as pleasurable.
Yeah, especially not immediately.
It's just not.
Yeah.
But
it will be more fulfilling.
For sure. What are the benefits? Like, why the hell do this in the first place? I think we've already talked a lot about how you can regain your attention and do harder things, and that leads to more fulfillment. But let's get specific about it. An obvious one is mental health, right? I think a lot of people have anxiety and don't realize that the cause of their anxiety is the stimulation. Yeah. Okay, so reducing anxiety and stress, improving focus. Focus, a lot of people don't realize that focus is a skill, right? What you're doing right now by the constant stimulation is you're training your focus to be shitty. Is to be, I need constant stimulation or else. That's why these kids can't even watch a movie these days. Like they have to watch a movie while on their phone, which by the way, I think is preposterous. Yeah. And I would never let my kid do that, but that's another.
I get offended.
No, it is offensive. And imagine you're the filmmaker.
I get offended.
You've created this thing that took you 2 years and this and that. And some shithead is on or worse, people watch an entire movie by bits on TikTok. Did you know that? They watch like Goodfellas, part 1 of 265, and with some guy talking about it.
Insane.
Yeah, that's the day and age we live in.
That's how you know we're not that deep in, because that's crazy.
As bad as you think you are, you're not as bad at all.
To me.
Better health, let's start with sleep. One of the most important things that you should be doing that most people are probably either on their phones late at night or binge watching Netflix, whatever it is, they're not getting enough sleep. So that's going to improve your health in a myriad of ways. appetite regulation. There's so many things, especially when it comes to like controlling your snacking and things like that. Your health is just going to improve in many ways.
I'm gonna do a snack detox in January.
No, you're not.
I swear I am.
All right, let's hold this guy accountable.
Snack detox. I swear, I eat more snacks than complete meals.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you accountable for that.
Hold me.
This is an important one. Emotional regulation. This is bigger than people think. It's finding joys in simple pleasures, not needing to be like super. I'm very guilty of like I always want more, and it's like okay, you have to. People like me need to bring it down and avoid certain things so that you can find pleasure without having to, be listening to something while snacking, while having a beer, while doing the thing.
And that's why, for me, one of my favorite activities, which sadly we don't have any here, is hiking. Like whenever I go to town, I like to go on hikes because if you're hiking on your phone, you're gonna bust your ass. So you're kind of forced to pay attention to your surroundings. It's active, and then when you get to the top, you do get a nice reward because you usually get a nice view. You get something fulfilling, and I think that's such a pleasurable activity.
Yeah, well, yeah, different type of pleasure, but it takes effort again. So I think playing sports is great for people too, and that's where they find that where like they have to be in the moment. I think that's one of the reasons people enjoy sports. Anything that takes you out of your own head, out of the damn device, and into doing something social, whether
Enjoyable.
it's dancing or playing a sport, or
And if
something
you're
like
good
that,
at it, even
or
better.
hiking. Yeah, so that's a good point. And the last one that I would say is like you strengthen like your ability to have discipline. Right? If you're disciplined enough to stay away from this, not use that, read a book instead of going on TikTok, like that strengthens your quote unquote discipline muscle, and then you could carry that on to whatever other task you want to do.
100%.
All right, so let's talk about my personal
Let's go.
detox plan that I'm implementing in
Step by
January.
step.
Okay, again, this is mine. You can take this and,
Twist it around.
do whatever you want to do, but this is what I'm doing. I'm deleting X from my phone. I have to delete it. I can't just have it there, okay? Because that's my big social media trigger. When it comes to Instagram, I'm only gonna post for business purposes, which I can't delete it from my phone, but it's like post and ghost, no scrolling. That's my rule.
0 to 30.
These next two are gonna be very hard. No alcohol.
For how long?
Because alcohol is, that's a good point. I'm gonna try to do it for 30 days. I'm not, let's say try. I'm gonna do it for 30 days. Okay,
tough.
Very tough. Alcohol is deceiving because you wouldn't think like, okay, well, I'm not an alcoholic. I don't depend on it. But do you?
No, I'm just kidding.
If you like, I like to have that glass of wine. If every time you're stressed, you gravitate towards alcohol, and if you're like me, where you can't have one drink, you have to have more, then it's a problem. So I'm quitting cold turkey. And the other one that's going to be hard is eating only when hungry. This is a tough one for anxious eaters or stress eaters like myself. It's going to be extremely hard. But again, I'm doing it as a test of will, as like, I know it's going to be hard. So let me try, but that's going to be a tough one. The other stuff is having my phone on silent for most of the day, which I already have, because notifications are killer. We haven't even talked about that, but those are disruptors. Like
my phone lives on Do Not Disturb mode with only my favorites allowed. And then when I get home, I'll check who texts me. So if you guys text me and I haven't responded, or Instagram DM me.
Terrible at responding to group chats. So
yeah,
I
it's
need
all
to put
muted.
them on one. But that's great. I think that's great that you do that.
Yeah, everything's always muted.
What am I replacing some of these activities with? Time with
kids.
Time with kids is the number one thing. Like
your
interactive.
Your own kids.
Yeah, please. I haven't been reading books like I used to. Like I used to be an avid reader, and now it's just like I just don't read that many books anymore.
Miss it.
And they're sitting there.
I don't have any.
I have a bunch because one of my guilty pleasures is like buying a book and getting excited about it and reading a few pages and then putting it on the shelf. But anyway,
reading Goosebumps. A lot of Goosebumps in there. Or?
A lot of R.L. Stein.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah.
R.L. Stein actually.
And it's the pick your own adventure ones. Doing my admin work, all the business work that I have to do all the time that,
there's always something to be done.
Always. So that's what I'm replacing with. And like any endeavor that you're going to take on that's going to be a challenge, like you have to expect that things are going to get difficult and then have a plan for it. So that's what I would advise people to do is that there will be, like you have to plan for the times where you're like, I really want to drink right now, or I really want to eat that bag of whatever.
So what's your plan?
My plan is, so this is something I learned from Alex Hormozi, which is whenever you're going to take on something hard, whether it's starting a business or wanting to get fit or build whatever body, you have to tell yourself before that it's going to be really hard, right? Like we all know that. But then when it gets hard, in the middle of it, when you're going through a hard time, you have to remind yourself, this is what hard feels like. He has this quote, this is what hard feels like.
That's what I say.
Oh! And by reminding yourself that alone is that's right. It's supposed to be fucking hard. I tell people when we do our challenges all the time where they're like, oh my God, I'm supposed to work out every day, but it's really hot today. What did you think that this was going to be? No, for real, but it sounds silly, but did you think you were going to cruise to start this business? Or cruise? Like, when you're having the craving, when you're going through that tough day, just remind yourself, oh, that's right. It's supposed to be really hard. Like, this is the time to prove myself. Like, I can do this shit when I don't feel like it, when I'm tired, when I have a craving. And guess what? The reward is going to be, I overcame that craving. Yeah, I did it. I didn't have a drink.
It is a nice feeling. I think another good tip there would be having your end goal in mind, whatever it may be. For yours is a decluttered mind, more control of yourself. Having that goal in mind at the end of it is telling yourself like, hey, I'm going through this hard thing, but at the end, my light at the end of the tunnel is whatever. If you're working out, if it's a fitness goal, it's my dream body or how good I'm gonna feel after. Like, having that goal in mind, it really does help to persevere in those little tough times.
I can see that. However, for me, that doesn't help at all.
Oh yeah, you're not that kind of guy.
The reason why is because like this is the cheap dopamine thing, is that what feels good now is way more powerful than what's gonna be my body in 3 months. Like, who gives a shit? It's 3 months. Like, no one thinks about 3 months from now or worse, like 10 years from now. That's why so many people don't invest and don't have retirement funds, is because right now matters more. Yeah. If you could become the person that thinks about future version of you more than right now, you're going to kill it. You're going to accomplish a lot.
However, that doesn't mean not to enjoy and live in the moment. Because if you're looking into the future, you're going to get anxiety. If you're looking into the past, you're going to get depressed. So,
well, the best way that like James Clear says it, and I think he's right on the money, is have your future self or your future goal, set that, and then forget about it. He actually doesn't tell you to like obsess about the goal. He says, set it, okay, this is my dream body, and then focus on the work today. So you can be more mindful of what you're doing today. And I think that fulfillment and happiness come from being in the moment. Not your friends trying to have a conversation with you and you're half on the phone, half answering emails, and then half paying attention to your friend. So I think that by taking these things on and rewiring your reward systems, you will, by virtue of that, be happier.
By virtue.
All right, so did we explain that good enough? Does it make sense?
Did we rant too much?
Is anybody else going to try to do this or do their own version of this? Let us know in the comment. I already got a few of my clients, only one. I already got one of my clients to do it with me. Let's see if they're going to actually follow through with it. But, while we're thinking about resolutions and goals and all of that for the next year, it'd be great to have like a group of people to do it with. So let me know, comment,
snack detox
DM
for me.
us. Let's do the damn thing.
I will eat complete meals like an adult man should.
Wow. We'll see.
With that being said, guys, keep listening to us though. Don't stop. If that's your addiction,
YouTube is great.
You just keep doing that.
YouTube is nice. Listen in your car.
Listen in your car, when you're not going to be doing anything else. Guys, have a great rest of your day.
Hasta la pasta.
Hasta la vista, babies. Kept going forever, but unfortunately, me estoy meando.